Welcome to another episode of Behind the Shadows. I'm your host, Harvey Guillen, aka Guillermo de la Cruz. Today's guest is Baby Colin Robinson himself, tapping into our hearts. It's Mark Proksch. Discover how Mark chooses his iconic roles in Shadows, The Office, and Better Call Saul. And why does Mark choose not to do any preparation for his scenes and what we do in the shadows? Find out on a very special episode of Behind the Shadows.
Breathing is so overwhelming, heartbeats are a hassle. Tell me, why would anyone want to be alive? Death might have a reputation before she arrives, but trust me, we have way more fun in the afterlife. We have way more fun in the afterlife.
Okay, guys, we're back for another episode of Behind the Shadows. I am super excited for our big finale guest, the one, the only, my friend, Mark Proksch.
Yeah, that actually got me.
Mark, first of all, this has been such a cool year for Colin, the trajectory of the story. But before we get to that, I want to talk about how you got started in acting. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in the acting world?
Yeah, I did I guess now it would be called a viral video, a series of viral videos that I had never intended to be viral. What I did was I booked myself on these morning shows, and I would go on these morning shows, and they had no idea that I was playing a character, and I was doing this to make my friends laugh. And so I booked myself as this yo-yo champion coming to area schools to teach kids about the environment through the use of my yo-yo. And which makes no sense. But it had all these things that morning shows love. It had, local interest. It had a hot button topic like environmentalism, and it had a demonstration. And so my friend and I sent out 12 press releases to morning shows throughout the Midwest. And by the end of the day, we had 10 bookings. And I did, I think, about 7 before these news stations started talking to each other and saying, did you have this weird idiot come and do this interview with you? And people started uploading these videos onto YouTube, and Deadspin, which is a big sports site, picked it up, and the writers on various TV shows were watching these, and the writers from The Office would watch them during their lunch. And my now wife, who was a writer on The Office, had just started working like 2 weeks ago. And so she was bound and determined to figure out who I was. And she did figure out who I was. The writers, Paul Lieberstein, who played Toby on The Office, called me. He was running the show at the time. And they flew me out to meet with all the writers. And a month later, I was on the show.
That's incredible, insane. And we'll insert video here because I'm sure we can... Here we go.
Welcome back to Good Morning Four States. It is finally Friday morning. Kay Strauss is back with us again from Zip Zap. We thank you for joining us this morning. You've got your hands full of yo-yos right now. You got, 4 yo-yos per hand, right?
Right. And what I do is, it's called the Blue Flying Angel.
Okay.
And it's like...
Do I need to get out of the way for this?
Yes, you do. What we do, or I'll do, is... the kids, I'll get into the room and the kids will be running around and they'll be all excited. And so I try to start things off on their level and try to hook them with something like a rap.
Okay.
So it's kind of clever because it includes me.
Okay.
And it goes, hey, they're up in the sky. It's the Kay Strauss, the yo-yo guy. And then I do the boo-da-da-ba-ba-ba. ba da da skiddy dee 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 da ba ba do 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 yo yo yo. You know, and I get them going and I get them into it.
Okay.
And so once I do that, they are ready to learn.
And there it is. That's what it was. I can't. Well, I've seen your videos, Mark, and I thought you were a real yo-yo instructor until you see this guy, you know, repeatedly not do a good job at it, and you keep such a straight face, which is what I think is so great about your comic timing and ability, is that like I can't tell when you're being serious or you're doing a bit, because you keep grounded, and you always keep grounded and never show either way that you're like doing a bit or not. And so sometimes I feel like you fuck with my mind sometimes, because you know that you're purposely like talking to me about something, and you go into like a Colin mannerism, and then I'm like, stop, are you doing it? And you're like, what are you talking about? And it's just like, you're so good at keeping it grounded, which is hard for comedians to do, and you do it so well. And my question, I guess, is, were you just always like that natural, like funny growing up? Were you like the funny guy at school, or?
Well, that's very kind of you to say. And I've said it often that you're my favorite straight man I've ever worked with. Because I can bounce anything off of you and you know how to react. And so I love that about you.
Well, that's very nice. It's true, though. I think we have, we've had some really great moments this season. Very tender moments of like co-parenting with Laszlo and raising you. It's just one of my favorite moments is playing baseball with you this season, and you being a teenager but like not giving a shit, and you're just like some of your delivery sometimes it's just like it's hard to make me break on set. Like I can't. I'm usually pretty good, and it's you this season. There's a couple of takes that like I just had to like cover my face to the side, because it's like your face in character as a teenage Colin Robinson delivering this dry, like what was the line in the baseball? And it's like, well, baseball's fucking stupid or something. Like it's just something ridiculous where you just added it, and it just like made me break. And it's hard to do because it's like you said, playing the straight guy on a straight man on the show is you know, it's pretty hard just because you guys are so funny, but you really kind of took it to the next level this season. And but going back to the question, were you always the funny guy at school? Were you known as that?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like the class clown. I always enjoyed comedy a lot. And that was clearly where my talents, if any, lied. I have funny brothers. I have 3 older brothers, and they're very funny. My mom and dad are very funny. My grandparents were very funny. So it was, you know, comedy was a big part of my upbringing, and at family gatherings and stuff like that, we would always be laughing. And I would make short, stupid videos with my friends in middle school and high school and stuff. And I knew that's what I really would want to do if I ever could. But my family had no idea of anything having to do with Hollywood. I mean, we didn't have an adjacent uncle or anyone that had any knowledge. There was no pathway really for me. I would have to have had the confidence and the ego to just say, I'm going to Hollywood. And I never had that. I mean, growing up in the Midwest, you know, ego is the 11th commandment that you're not supposed to have. And so I just fell into that backwards. But I didn't really take much theater or anything like that. I didn't go to, I don't have formal training. And it, you know, sometimes I think that shows, unfortunately, but the comedy, I'm pretty confident I can do.
Yeah. Well, you do it very, very, very well.
We have way more fun in the afterlife.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Throughout my personal journey and professional career, life has had its fair share of tricks and treats. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have access to therapy to help me through those tricky experiences. BetterHelp has made therapy accessible. BetterHelp Online Therapy will assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. If you ever considered therapy but thought getting started was too complicated or expensive, I assure you it's worth it. And BetterHelp takes all the stress away. You can schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. And getting therapy every week as easy as a few clicks on your laptop or phone. So many people have been using BetterHelp that they're recruiting additional therapies in all 50 states. And they have a special offer for my listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/shadowspodcast. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/shadowspodcast. Now back to the show.
And the idea that this season, I mean, when you got the news of Colin Robinson, obviously, dying last season of the end of season 3, when you were told that he was going to be reborn, what did you think? What was going through your head? Like, how is that going to happen? Or what were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I was scared at first because you don't want your character to be the reason people stop liking the show. And when you say, oh, we're going to turn one of the main cast members into a baby, that's kind of hard to swallow at first. The saving grace was that our show is a cartoon, basically, and anything can happen because we're dealing with, vampires and goblins and anything. So there was some leeway to suspend one's disbelief a little bit with regard to that. The other thing that I knew couldn't fail was the writing, as we've talked about many times. I think we have the best comedy writers in the game right now, working on our show. And so I figured it was up to me to ruin this. And I just, I worked at it. As you know, like, we come to set and we, unless it's a serious scene, I personally don't prepare much. And I do that for a reason, and that's so when I get on set, because it's a mockumentary. If this was Better Call Saul, I rehearse the shit out of that, backwards and forwards. But with this, I want there to be the ums and ahs injected as I'm trying to think of the next line or think of how I'm going to do the next bit. Because I feel like as a documentary, you want to look real and unrehearsed. And the same with our improv. And I know you do the same. We don't come to set already having improv worked out in our minds. Because then it would just seem fake. And so I was concerned with doing the baby part because there wasn't going to be that level of improv that we're so comfortable doing, because 90% of what I did was on a green screen and you guys already had your lines filmed. And so I'm reacting to something that's already set in stone. So that was a bit of a challenge too. Yeah, hopefully it worked. I don't know. We'll see.
I was going to say that was probably the most thing that we missed, is that, being on set with each other, we can actually have an improv in the moment. And because Baby Colin is played by, we have young actors who played the tangible body and head of you.
Yeah.
And then we put dots on their faces. And so then you're putting to green screen into this. And so we really can improvise as much as we could when it's already set in stone, like you said. And then you're like, oh man, that would have been a fun bit to do with Baby Colin back and forth. But we didn't get that because of technology and because of the actual way that the shooting schedule would go. But I think it came out perfect because, in a way, Baby Colin's growing, developing, and all the adults around him are trying to figure out how to raise this child, and what is taking place. Is it nurture versus nature, or vice versa? And so it's the adults dealing with this child, and Colin living in their own sweet world is kind of its own thing that you kind of created, where he cares about musicals and Legos, and kind of that's a child. Like a child is always just involved in like the world they've created for themselves. They really don't know about what's going on around them. They're aware and they're smart and they can listen, but they create their own world, you know? And I think that kind of worked in our favor with Baby Colin. Especially, I love that he loves musicals.
Yeah, and that's a storyline I've wanted to have for Colin, is theater on some level, and musical theater, which I personally love, and I think we all love on the show. And Paul Sims has confessed his love for musical theater. But it's such a fun target at the same time, even when you're in musical theater. I think it's, you can take it with a little tongue-in-cheek sometimes, and that's great. That's what it should be. It's a huge spectacle, and I've always wanted Colin to kind of move into that arena. And so I was really excited that when I found out that he was going to be doing song and dance, and I would actually get to sing and stuff like that. That was exciting. I going back to the improvisation, I think you're 100% right. I think the fact that playing Colin as a baby was so confining is a good thing, because children, Baby Colin, I don't think, doesn't need to drain people to survive. And so I don't think he has the knowledge yet of all these ridiculously boring tangents or an improv that I, as an adult, would put into the character wouldn't fit for the child. And that was something I had to keep in mind throughout filming, was this isn't Mark Proksch playing this character and me throwing in something that I find funny. It's Mark Proksch playing this character that's a tween, and that tween doesn't have, the years on him to be able to draw on certain topics or jokes and put them in. So that confinement, actually, I think you're right, worked.
I think so. I think it's very sweet. People are a lot of fans have made throughout the season really beautiful fan art of what they've quoted. It's Baby Colin and Tío Memo, or Uncle Memo, because Guillermo kind of takes on the more maternal role in the relationship, with co-parenting with Laszlo, and lets you be who you want to be, and encourages you. And our team, marketing team and social team has done a great job of, if you go to actual Colin Robinson's or Baby Colin's YouTube page, you can actually look at the videos and like them, and you'll see that a lot of the comments are actually Guillermo's comments, giving Baby Colin like, Legos are fun, good job, buddy. Like, they did such a great job of like really kind of continuing the storyline of like that. You always have that one parent who's really encouraging, and maybe the parent who's not as with that, because remember, Laszlo's not
100%.
Not big on the arts of, like, we're not musical theater. It's for half-wits. That's what he calls it. But the idea that these two men are raising you as a child, and what will come of it, is what we see at the final conclusion of the episode of season 4. It's kind of great, like the story that we just told through a comedy, which is so great. It's just like, how do you raise a child? What does it take? A village? Who's part of do you have any fond memories of when you were a child that you just think are like, wow, that was just a special moment that kind of helped me or guided me or will live with me, just because it was so good in itself and what it was?
Yeah. It's hard to point to just one specific one, but my grandma, one of my grandmas, was very into the arts. And, she did community theater and community musical theater. And when I was very young, 6 or 7, she started bringing me in to the cast. And so I would play like kid number 37 in Sound of Music or The Music Man or what have you. And that experience was really, I think, invaluable for me, because at that early of an age, it taught me not to be scared in front of audiences, because at that age, you don't really know to be scared in front of large groups of people. And she was always very, very funny. Like, for The Sound of Music, she played Mother Superior, and she went to a photographer and then had not headshots, but like, photos that you give to relatives. And so for Christmas, she gave out all these photos of her in a nun's costume. And, she was just that type of person. And, I have great parents. I was very lucky. Very lucky to have supportive parents that, were hardworking, very hardworking, and good models, and taught me very young that life isn't fair. And I think a lot of kids don't get taught that lesson anymore. Now I sound like an old grandpa, but
no, but it's true. You're right.
Yeah. And I think, they were also, they were very loving, but also there was discipline if you screwed up. And I think as a kid, you think your parents hate you, or you hate your parents, or what have you, because of that. But then as you get older, you realize that it's a really delicate balance. And hopefully your parents or parent or guardian was able to thread that needle.
We have way more fun in the afterlife.
If you haven't heard already, it's Smooth Sack Summer. That's right, this is the summer to keep your balls cool while still looking hot with Manscaped. The leader in below-the-belt grooming is making sure we all have a ball this summer by giving our pants partners everything they need to stay fresh. Dive headfirst into Smooth Sack Summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with our code SHADOWS. The Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 has everything you need to prepare that summer body. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Revival toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies. Did I mention this trimmer is waterproof too? Beach, lake, or shower, this razor will devour even the strongest eternal pubes. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code SHADOWS, manscaped.com. That's 20% plus free shipping with code SHADOWS at manscaped.com. It's Smooth Sack Summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind.
What is something you might be able to share that? What's one time that you screwed up that you needed to be like disciplined? Like, it's like, did you steal the car? Or
gosh. No, one I remember was I cut my own hair. And
this is the outcome.
I think I was...
Mark, what did you do?
Well, yeah.
Mark!
Yeah, had I only known. It was so traumatizing, I went bald. No, I must have been 4 or 5. I was very young. And I cut my hair. And
you should not be using scissors at 4 or 5, right? That's the rule number 1.
Well, that, but also you shouldn't be cutting your own hair at 4 or 5. And boy, I got in trouble for that. I got a spanking for that, for sure. And then there was another time where I would always get ear infections as a kid. I never had the tubes put in, but I always got ear infections. And the liquid penicillin, it's like
the
pink
one, yeah.
if I remember correctly. I had to take that, and I remember, again, I was like 5 or 6. I remember thinking it kind of looked like blood. And so my mom would give it to me and I would keep it in my mouth. And then I would just go out in the garage, not even out in the yard like an intelligent kid would. And I'd act like, oh, I'm dying. And I would like have it. And here it's medicine I'm supposed to be taking. And then my mom one day came out and she just saw the pink on the ground and put 2 and 2 together. My mom was always good at like figuring out, okay, what did this idiot just do? And then tying the pieces together and why. She was always very good about that.
The penicillin you're supposed to be taking for your ear infection to make you feel better, you're not taking and using it as prop blood out of your mouth.
Yeah, and we weren't wealthy. We didn't grow up.
That's money.
I mean, we were lower middle class, and so like that's
money you throwing away.
That,
that's a lot.
That's a doctor's visit, and that's prescription.
Oh my gosh. I mean, those are good ones. I mean, and you grew up in the Midwest, you said? Was it?
Yeah, in Wisconsin.
I'm just imagining like in the middle of winter with that medicine just like freeze over in the on the floor of a garage and just leave like a pink residue on the cement floor.
Oh, you can be sure I had to clean that up. You can be sure.
So, Mark, this year we got to go to Comic-Con. And we filled up Hall H, which is crazy to think of because that is a massive, massive, massive audience. And we were full. We have people who told us afterwards that they try to go in and there were capacity and security guards wouldn't let them in, that they were that packed and that many people. What was that experience like? What was Comic-Con like for you this year? And what was it like to see your character for cosplay? We saw so many Colin Robinsons walking around, and what was that like? Did you think that would ever happen? Your characters would be cosplayed at a Comic-Con?
No. I mean, it's as you know, when you're filming a show, especially this one, which we film in Toronto in the dead of winter. The last couple years, we haven't been able to really go anywhere because of COVID. During production. And so it becomes very insular and you forget that you even have fans that are waiting on this product or are excited to see this product because you are just so focused on going to work and coming home and eating and sleeping so you're prepared for the next day. And then to go to Comic-Con, which is just such a rewarding experience because you see the fruits of that labor and you meet people who are so incredibly invested in the show and our fans are really, really kind and very creative people. And you see that in the artwork that they send us. You see that in the costumes that they create themselves. So to be on a show that takes on a life of its own amongst the fans is really incredible and very rare in this day and age where there's 5,000 shows and 5 million actors on those shows.
Yeah, it was. You're right. It was. We started the show. And we premiered season 2 right before this whole thing with pandemic happening. And we kind of went away and just did the work and did a couple of seasons, but we really hadn't been out and about and kind of seen how much the show had been well received. And so I knew we were going to Comic-Con. I knew we had fans because they've been so lovely to share their art online and tag us and whatnot. But I had no idea that it was that kind of, massive, well received, and it was just like it blew my mind. Like I was just like, wow, this is really insane and really awesome. And we thank all those fans who dressed up, who come and support us, who came from around the world. Some people, traveled from around the world to go to San Diego Comic-Con to maybe get a glimpse of us. And we went out and said hi to everyone, and it just blew my mind. Like it was just so many wonderful people who love this show, and and now people know how many of us it takes to make the show happen. It's just not the actors, obviously, but we have an amazing team of writers and producers and costume designers and all the whole team that just that gets this thing.
And it's great to see them getting acknowledged now in awards.
Yeah, we got nominations for costume, for stunt. We got TIG. We got 2 nominations for writing. We got the nomination for comedy, which is great. And then it's always just a cherry on top. Everything you think you got the sprinkle done and the cherry and the whipped cream, it's always like, oh, there's something else that's just added that makes it even sweeter and richer, I guess you could say. You've had such a great career, just The Office and Better Call Saul and this show. Are you really particular about the roles that you want to play going forward? Are you like, as long as it's funny? What's your rule of thumb usually when you play a role?
For better or for worse, I've always been very particular. I feel like you owe that to your fan base. I as a huge fan of television and movies and certain actors, I've felt personally let down when an actor who I loved and thought was very considerate with their choices chooses some awful stupid movie or some awful silly TV show. I think that it's not rational of me to feel that way. I understand that. But we do have some control. And it's hard when you're starting out because you need money. And it's incredibly hard to be choosy and picky. Looking back, there may be 1 or 2 things I wouldn't have done, but I'm not embarrassed by those. They're still decent things, decent products.
You have to pay the bills, Mark. You have to pay the bills.
You have to pay the bills. But yeah, I think you owe that to your fan base. And I think it helps your career in the long run, being a bit choosy. You don't want to overstay your welcome. You don't want to wear out your welcome, and you don't want to be overexposed. And as character actors, that can happen very quickly, I think. And yeah, I am a little picky. And again, like, it's hard sometimes early on, especially when I'd be on The Office and you have friends who think, oh, you're on TV now, you're rich. Well, no, you go on. I was a reoccurring on The Office. And so I might get 1 paycheck for a month or 2 months of 1 episode. And that 1 episode paid me like what I made for 2 weeks at my temping job. And so it's not like all of a sudden you have just sacks of money handed to you. And so you scrounge and you work really hard. And so to be choosy during those times is especially hard.
Yeah. I mean, you do put a lot of work. You put a lot of work into the character development of the characters that you do. So yeah, it does pay off to be, selective and all of that. And it is part of what you want to present and your brand, what you want to be proud of, obviously.
We have way more fun in the afterlife.
For this character, what kind of preparation for Colin, which is the first of its kind, never seen on television really as an energy vampire. What kind of preparation did you go into to fall into Colin's mindset?
I like playing the weirdos. I like playing the a bit eccentric, schlubby, kind of annoying characters because that's who I enjoy in real life. That's who I like on the shuttle at the airport will strike a conversation with, or standing in line at the DMV or what have you. I love to talk to them, and just they're far more interesting and far more fun to hear out than, say, just another person that looks like me and talks like me. And so with Colin, it was a lot of, I'll record people sometimes when I'm talking with them, or if they're going on a rant with some other person, I'll just flip on my voice memo and then listen back to that a little bit. Not to be intrusive, but just to really figure out what their mindset is, and then try to get into that mindset a little bit when I'm doing a character. But that's about it for preparation. I try to really hear what the writers want. And on our show, we were given the privilege of flexibility with our characters to a certain degree. They weren't set in stone necessarily. Jermaine, especially early on, made us aware of that and wanted a great deal of improvisation. And I think your character develops over that time. It's always fun to watch the first season of a show, and then on the 7th season, go back and rewatch that first season, because you see that character develop a great deal. And that, I feel like, has happened with all of us. We've gotten very comfortable playing these characters. We know them backwards and forwards. And the minimal preparation I did ahead of time, a lot of that probably went to the side as I figured out the character and as the writers developed the character.
I mean, it's been a great season, and it's been a great, I mean, Colin's always been one of my favorites, and now this really kind of takes the cherry on top. Just like with Baby Colin has been such a great season, such a great journey. We had Naja's also, the club, and we were asking all our guests, if you had a drink for Colin at Naja's, what would the drink be called, and what would it be made out of?
Oh my gosh, that is a hard one.
And it could be obviously a human drink, so for human consumption, but like what would it be name, and what would the ingredients be for it?
I think it would be called Colin's Drain Vein, because he would want to play on the main vein euphemism to be annoying and gross. And it would probably be a lot of Aperol and a lot of maraschino cherry juice. And a lot of decoration on top. So much so that it's incredibly annoying to drink.
Does it poke you? Like there's no straw? Like you have to actually put the cup to your mouth?
Oh yeah, you have to drink
there's
it.
No straw.
So you
have to put up to all the...
Yeah, and there's like, pineapple rind. There's
just...
And stuff that you don't want in it. Grass.
And then it's a giant piece of like, like turkey bacon wrapped around asparagus. This is just...
Yeah, stuff that you don't want.
And it's just poking your eye. You can't even get to the drink. You can't even get to the actual beverage.
Yeah, no, you don't. You order it, and then the bar is filled with these at the end of the night because no one touched them after they ordered.
They're just at the end of the bar. They just collect them at the corner.
Yeah.
People just leave them.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, Mark, thanks so much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Harvey.
I love this season. This has been one of my favorites. The story, and
you're killing it this season.
Literally, I'm just killing people.
Yeah. But that fight scene was amazing.
That is my favorite fight scene so far, and one of my favorites. And here's to another 2 seasons, season 5 and season 6 coming your way, everyone. We're excited. Is there anything you want to tell the fans Mark, who've been supportive of the show from the beginning and who continue to love and who can totally ship Colin mannerisms.
Yeah, I just a deep, hearted thank you and a feeling of gratitude. We know this doesn't happen often, that fans get this involved and this excited about a show. And hopefully we can keep making you laugh during these very, very ridiculous times.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next season.
Behind the Shadows is a production of Straw Hut Media, hosted by Harvey Guillen, produced by Ryan Tillotson, Amada Sanchez, and Tyler Nielsen. Original music by Trevor Bumgar and Chris Hendricks, vocals by Maggie Glass. If you don't already, subscribe wherever you're listening, and make sure to follow Behind the Shadows podcast on Instagram for more behind-the-scenes content. And tune in live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific on the What We Do in the Shadows subreddit for an AMA with Harvey and special guests.
Breathing is so overwhelming, heartbeats are a hassle. Tell me, why would anyone want to be alive? Death might have a reputation before she arrives, but trust me, we have way more fun in the afterlife. We have way more fun in the afterlife.
See you next week.